outside the cathedral. Even across the entire world, this ancient cathedral ranked among the most sacred, a holy land revered by countless believers. Now, it was unrecognizable. The phoenix force bloomed, material molecules bent at her will, reshaped by a single thought. Brick and stone flickered, transforming into adamantine and diamond in an instant. They became spears, countless spears, golden spears, diamond spears, meteorite spears, tungsten spears. They screamed toward KT 9927. This attack did not need acceleration time. It ignored speed, ignored inertia, ignored distance. Kinetic energy was forced instantly to its absolute limit. The void itself ruptured. Space cracked like fragile glass, fissures spreading under the overwhelming pressure. Between heaven and earth, tens of millions of spears crossed, intertwining into a divine execution ground. Every single strike carried power no weaker than an orbital weapon. Point impact damage exceeded that of a falling meteor. Ley lines could be shattered by this alone. In front of countless screens, some viewers shut their eyes. They could not bear to watch a beautiful young girl die beneath a storm of impalement. It felt too cruel, but reality proved otherwise. The power of KT 9927. KT 9927 slowly raised a delicate finger. Invisible power expanded outward. Reality distortion flooded the battlefield. Beyond type green, a black-type reality distortion, the symbol of true divinity. When the ancient mother ascended, standing beside SCP-166, she was no demigod. She was a god in the truest sense. Retreat. The voice was flat, yet it carried absolute authority, as if declaring the fundamental truth of existence. Reality obeyed. All kinetic energy vanished. The spear storm slowed. From unstoppable streaks beyond human perception, they became visible objects, motionless in midair. As if someone pressed pause. Every attack, total stagnation, shockwaves across the world. How is this possible? Phoenix's eyes widened. She understood that powerful beings existed in the multiverse. But this was different. Vector control? Time stop? No. This power directly rewrote the fundamental laws of reality. Is this the terror of a reality bender? Nick Fury's pupils contracted. Now he understood. Ignoring objective laws. Distorting reality itself. This was a reality bender. An existence that should not exist. This defies science. Military scientists collapsed in disbelief. Orbital-level kinetic energy erased as casually as gravity ceasing to exist. Madness. How can this be? Even superpowers must obey physics. A cry of despair echoed. Mutant Academy. Professor X stood up abruptly. This can't be. His eyes were locked on the screen. Reality bender. That power. It resembled the trench coat man the Foundation had deployed before. Wish fulfillment. Omnipotent distortion. Gene. Hold on. This is our chance. If mutants succeeded here, coexistence could become reality. This was the perfect moment. And there was another mutant force on the field. Hope ignited. Wanda's intervention. The laws of reality twisted. Wanda frowned. The sensation felt familiar. Uncomfortably familiar. Like mine, but weaker in essence? No, this was not the time to hesitate. This was life or death. Get out of my way. Her scream shook the air. Scarlet light engulfed her eyes. Origin magic erupted. Energy surged beyond safety thresholds. Two massive cores of power formed in her hands, rotating like miniature stars. Then, they were hurled forward. Alter reality. Absolute. Sid Horn. The observer's eyes shifted. So the Ancient One had answered. Given Wanda's future, rewriting timelines, forging universes, this intervention made sense. Even Mephisto was insignificant before her potential. Reactions across the cosmos. The Ancient One sighed. Scarlet, which had reached a point where intervention was no longer necessary. Gao Tianzun stiffened. Sidhorn move? That alone was enough. With Phoenix Force and Origin Magic combined, defeat should be impossible. A god riding a dragon into battle. Victory was assured, or so they thought. Reality shatters expectations. The combined strike landed. Two primordial forces clashed and failed completely. KT 9927 remained untouched. Serene, maternal, divine. The city vanished, not destroyed, erased. From orbit, the Earth bore a massive scar. Phoenix and Wanda were blasted away like debris. Two dull impacts, both unconscious. The Phoenix Force and Chaos Magic retreated, vessels lost. They could not descend personally. This was already their limit. Reality warped. Black voids expanded. The city, and millions within, ceased to exist. Aftermath. Nick Fury swallowed hard. Worse, the memory of the city was fading. What was its name? His perfect recall failed, as if it never existed. But the crater remained. Proof of erasure. Yet SCP-160 SIXS effect continued spreading. Cities reverted. Technology decayed. Stone Age reclaimed asphalt. Nature devoured steel. Damn it. Nick Fury slammed the table. At this rate, continents would fall. A final turn. Then, propeller aircraft appeared above SCP-166. Impossible. That thing disables technology. But the insignia was unmistakable. The Foundation. Suddenly, everything made sense. The propellers roared overhead. A sound born of technology and civilization, tearing through a land that looked ready to fall back into the Stone Age. Harsh, piercing, impossible to ignore. An airplane. SCP-166 tilted her head and stared up at the sky, eyes full of curiosity. For all the terror her passive ability caused, the succubus girl, Gia, was still just that at her core. A simple girl. She never wanted to charm men into madness. She was a victim of her own power. Forced into fear and misunderstanding, treated like a walking disaster for something she couldn't control. So when the fighter planes appeared, her first reaction wasn't panic. It was confusion. Why didn't the electronics short out? Why didn't they collapse the moment they entered her range? Could it be? Can they control the effect I have on others? She blinked, looking almost adorably innocent. But the one beside her wasn't calm at all. KT 9927 stood perfectly still. A flawless face, a slight furrow of her brow. Even that tiny expression was enough to make countless people's hearts tighten, as if beauty itself were a weapon. Fear flickered in her eyes. For the first time, she acted first. Reality-warping power bloomed at her fingertips. In that instant, constants shifted and natural laws bent, rewritten like lines of chalk. And yet, the fighter planes didn't even flinch. They kept coming. When they reached a safe distance above the two, their altitude lowered slowly, steady and controlled. Whoosh! The hatch opened. One after another, fully armed operatives dropped from the sky, landing directly in front of KT 9927, face to face, as if her reality warping meant nothing. How is that possible? Aren't they afraid of dying? Eagle Sauce's command room went stiff. KT 9927 strength was obvious to everyone. With or without SCP-160 SXS influence, her reality distortion alone was enough to make even top-tier heroes hesitate. Her combat presence was absurd, like a cheat code, and the Foundation's response was regular-looking special operations squads, no legendary spear-wielding figure, no dramatic heavyweight entrance. Eagle Sauce had deployed instruments, spent resources, prepared to dissect every second. And now it felt like they'd come just to watch a routine drill. Clones, someone muttered. Maybe they don't care if they die. Just disposable units. But Nick Fury shook his head immediately. Disposable? He said quietly. No. The exposure video hadn't given full details on KT 9927, but it had given enough. The Foundation wasn't ignorant. Using cannon fodder to test a reality bender would be normal for plenty of organizations. Human lives, clones included, were just numbers to people in high places. But the Foundation? They wouldn't do something that's stupid, Fury said, voice firm. His confidence in the Foundation had become almost irrational at this point. They didn't operate blindly. Not after everything they'd shown. They have a method, he murmured, staring hard at the screen. They always do. And he was right. The moment the operatives landed, they didn't rush in. They spread out. Fast, clean, coordinated. And only then did the world notice something horrifying. They weren't human. They were blacklight tyrants. A refined, evolved form. Human-shaped, but wrong in every detail. Dark bodies with a cold metallic sheen, strength so extreme they could crush super soldiers like toys. They formed squads of 3 and 5, spacing themselves precisely, about 20 meters apart. Each squad became a node, a network, a net. From above, their formation looked like a seal, a pattern-locking KT 9927 into its center. And then came the real payload. Each squad dragged heavy, black metal devices, chains wrapped around their arms, like anchors biting into the earth. KT 9927's comm finally cracked. Her face changed instantly. Rage surged, and beneath it, something rarer. Fear. Boom. Fire and distortion erupted. Space twisted into a writhing dragon. Time fractured into jagged chaos. The air itself screamed as constants collapsed and reassembled. This wasn't just defense. Reality warping as an attack was terrifying. It turned the laws of the universe into a spear. Rewrite the rules. Smash the constants. Crush everything with raw authority. But she had met the Foundation, and this team had been built for her. In the pocket space, Lin Xiu narrowed his eyes slightly. Scranton reality anchors, he said softly. Begin. SRA. The Foundation's legendary stabilizers. The most famous countermeasure in history against reality benders. Lin Xiu couldn't build them. Not with his resources. Not with his knowledge. But he didn't need to. He could redeem them. From SCP-2000's protective systems, the reality anchors existed as part of that mechanical legacy. Lin Xiu simply pulled out what he needed selectively, efficiently. He had prepared for this from the moment SCP-166 entered the scene. He wasn't surprised by KT 9927 at all. Her fate had been decided the moment she appeared. No reality bender escapes an anchor. The blacklight tyrants roared in unison. Muscles swelled. Arms thickened. Chains rattled. They heaved. The anchors slammed into place across the formation like a sealing array. And the terrifying attack vanished. Not blocked. Erased. The distortion hit the anchors and dissolved like smoke. Not just the attack. KT 9927 herself seemed to be wrapped in invisible shackles. Inside her body, the power simply stopped. Gone. Locked out. Like a creature thrown into an environment where its strongest organ couldn't function. She didn't die, but she was temporarily disarmed. And without reality warping, she was just an ordinary person. An ordinary person with beauty so overwhelming it still felt dangerous. But beauty didn't stop chains. Didn't stop restraints. Didn't stop a containment team built from monsters wearing human skin. SCP-166 didn't resist either. She never wanted this. She was relieved. The process became smooth, efficient, almost clinical. Step by step, the Foundation team secured them and escorted them back toward the aircraft like it was routine. When the propellers roared again and the plane began to climb, the world still hadn't recovered. That's it, Nick Fury said, expression stiff. He'd expected a battle, a desperate escalation, a lesson he could steal, a trick he could copy. Instead, the Foundation dropped in, threw down a few devices, and turned a god-tier threat into a harmless rookie. Fury almost felt like laughing, except nothing about it was funny. This organization, he muttered, unfathomable. Dr. Manhattan watched quietly, eyes full of curiosity. Different tools each time. Different solutions each time. An endless vault of methods. He had expected this spear-wielding figure again. Instead, he got anchors. And somehow, that made it more interesting. Because it meant the Foundation's limit still wasn't visible. On the moon reef, the observer's face tightened. He wasn't afraid of KT 9927. If it was a clean one-on-one fight, he believed he could suppress her. But the Foundation's containment? That terrified him, because it meant one of two things. Either they understood every anomaly so deeply they could counter it with precision, or they possessed suppression methods so overwhelmingly high-level that top-tier beings were no more than livestock to them. Either option was horrifying. They contained him that easily, the observer whispered.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Almost when the containment team returned to the pocket space, the system prompt sounded at the same time. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a controllable version of SCP-166. A lackluster reward. Lin Xiu smacked his lips and gave an evaluation in his heart. The succubus girl Gia has a docile personality, and it is easy to get her cooperation. Controllability is not very important to her. That is, it is better than nothing. Lin Xiu pulled it casually. Open a new pop-up panel. Controllable version of SCP-166 Succubus Girl Gia. Within the scope of her existence, all man-made objects will gradually return to their unprocessed state, and precise and complex objects will be affected faster. As SCP-166 descend for longer, the scope of influence will continue to expand. It will arouse the primitive impulse of male human instincts. All males will become slaves of desire and will do nothing to fight for SCP-166 and will be obsessed with SCP-166 without a bottom line. The holder Lin Xiu can control the actions of SCP-166, and her effect cannot affect the subjective will of the holder. Note: SCP-166 needs to provide 1 milliliter of special body fluid every day for its eating method. Am I in the category of immunity? Lin Xiu smacked his lips. No wonder he only has the purest appreciation for SCP-166. Not the beast's instinctual urges. But for normal men, the idea of viewing beautiful creatures is completely within the scope of reason. Emotion, he is within the scope of the exemption. Lin Xiu thought that he had already cultivated the mentality of Gujing Wubua. Tisk, send it down for containment. Lin Xiu shook his head. Fortunately, the items exchanged by the system can effectively isolate the influence of SCP-160's power. Don't worry about going back to the Stone Age when you open your eyes. Otherwise, he also has to redeem a separate pocket space to put SCP-166 in, which is a big loss. Tread. Under Lin Xiu's order. Standing around the underground base, the sculpture-like guards instantly came to life. Don't change your face. Proceed to the prepared room with SCP-166. They are essentially zombies transformed by SCP-008. They don't even have gender, let alone be affected by the charm effect of SCP-166. They are definitely the best guards. The rewards were distributed as usual. Lin Xiu has long been used to it after so many experiences. But, compared with usual, this time seems to be a little more lucky. Ding! Alien containment found. KE 9927 black. Do you want to contain it? Yes, apricot. Lin Xiu's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't expect this surprise to be waiting. He planned to keep suppressing Kitty 9927 with the anchor to prevent her from jumping out and making trouble. Unexpectedly, the system actually jumped out to help. Tisk, it seems that I can save a sum of exposure value. Lin Xiu smacked his lips. The idiot chose to refuse. Ding! KE 9927 black. Containment succeeded, converting to a controllable version. That's okay. Lin Xiu blinked with surprise on his face. If this is the case, it will be a double hit, and this time it can be regarded as a big profit. SCP-166 is unremarkable. They all rely on passive and indiscriminate strikes. But her mother, this ancient divinity, is different. A top-level 5 reality bender is definitely a top combat power. Even if she is placed under Lin Xiu's command, she can greatly increase her strength. In the exchange panel, the value of a level 5 reality bender is an astronomical figure. That's still normal. The divine, KT, 9927 is obviously not ordinary. Controllable version, KT, 9927, Black Goddess / Mother. Powerful reality bender, type Black Divinity. Once gave birth to SCP-166 with Dr. Clef, one of the 4 Doctors of Apocalypse, fighting the god of war, Ablo as a mother in prehistoric times. Owner Lin Xiu can control its behavior and completely influence KT-9927's actions. Note, he is the mother who gave birth to life, and also the poor man who was killed by his lover. Lin Xiu's eyes moved slightly. Completely obey your own instructions. A powerful combat force with no future troubles is not much more reliable than those of the 682 Uncle Z. Don't worry about thunderstorms at any time, attracting supernormal attention. Moreover, with the strong strength of KT 9927, it is barely enough at present. Just when the corner of Lin Xiu's mouth was raised and he was in a good mood. Ding! The host successfully contained 10 anomalies, and the Foundation's authority is further unlocked. New module loading. Module loaded. Foundation permissions are further unlocked. Special meme. Foundation-related organizations. 3 arrows rotate through concentric circles. The mark representing the Foundation, constantly rotating in the system panel. Wait until the icon freezes. In the system screen, a variety of tokens representing organization names began to emerge. The Black Queen of the Crown with simple strokes. Serpent's Hand like a tree diagram. Like Prometheus Labs surrounded by stars. All kinds of organizations flash across the screen. Some Lin Xiu is familiar with, and some Lin Xiu is unfamiliar with. Even the GOC Alliance with a shining 5-pointed star is one of them. Here, take off. Lin Xiu's eyes lit up, and there was a smile on the corner of his mouth. This time the brand new template is activated. Ascension is definitely beyond imagination. Even no less than the unlocking of the Gemini God meme. The relevant organizations of the Foundation are unlocked, and members of the corresponding organizations can be recruited from them by consuming exposure points. It means a lot to Lin Xiu. It not only fills the shortcomings of the Foundation's internal emptiness, but also greatly enhances the organization's combat power. Under normal circumstances, many special teams of the Foundation have the ability to suppress and contain SCPs alone. For Lin Xiu, it is definitely a great burden reduction. Even if there is an accident one day and SCPs swarm in and flood the universe, Lin Xiu doesn't have to worry about being in a hurry. And there are not a few strong people who break the rules. At least, the KT-9927 beside him was personally killed by Dr. Clef in the GOC. Tisk. Lin Xiu smacked his lips. Looking at the beautiful 9927 next to him, his expression was a little subtle. Ding! The containment of SCP-166 is complete. Do you want to start drawing the 11th contained item for exposure and arrival? Weather. Familiar formula, familiar taste. Lin Xiu almost regarded this as a sense of ritual. The decisive choice is okay. Then start the lottery draw in the starry containment. But this time the Earth King's luck seems to be not very good. Dell, maybe it's the bad luck of the entire universe. It's actually, this is interesting. Lin Xiu murmured in a low voice, with a rare serious expression on his face. Even the joy of unlocking the new module before was diluted a lot at this moment. Matter might be big. I hope there are not too many people who commit suicide. The forgotten nameless city. The dark patch on the surface seemed to have been wiped away by Invisible's big hand. The whole city, completely removed from the Earth, not only geographically, but also in man-made memory and related records. Below is an exposure video. No one knows that such a city once existed on Earth, and it was erased abruptly by the terrifying power. Tread, tread. The X-Men soared into the sky, searching for an inch of land around with super ability. Even Professor X, who has been staying in the Mutant Academy and the 10,000-year dead house, has rarely come to the field. Psychokinesis pours out, scattered out. It keeps searching around like a radar. Next to the busy figures of the X-Men, there are countless agents dispatched, the sound of fighter planes roaring in the ear, various searchlights and radars illuminate, busy, looking for something. The two forces did not affect each other and were afraid of their respective strengths, so they did not fight. Found it, almost at the same time. The voices sounded from the mouths of the two forces at the same time. The mutants rushed towards Phoenix excitedly, and the SHIELD agents gathered towards Scarlet Witch on the other side. Sorry, this mission failed and let you down. Sheen stood up unsteadily. He covered his head and looked at Professor X, with a bit of apology and self-blame on his face. This is Mutant's best chance to step up to the stage. Wham! Get screwed by yourself. I'm sorry. Professor X shook his head. His tone was extremely firm. There's no need to say sorry to anyone. This time, you've done enough. It was me who was too reckless. I sent you out without determining the danger and the strength of the opponent. Failure is my responsibility as the commander. Professor X took the responsibility directly. Unlike Magneto, his character is to start with himself first, and then to others. It is never a character to push the fault to other people and get used to blaming others. Besides, this time the containment came, and their mutants didn't get rich. At least, Sheen has truly awakened the Phoenix Force, attracting the attention of the most powerful original force in the original universe. And being able to borrow his power has entered the top level of combat power on the Earth. As Sheen continues to become stronger, she can borrow more and more Phoenix Forces. Mutant finally has an ace that cannot be ignored, as long as the strength is strong enough. Sooner or later, there will be a day to go to the stage. This containment is so powerful that Professor X can't believe that the next containment can be so perverted. As the storage continues to increase, there will always be a time when their mutant shows up. Rest assured, we still have a chance. Seeing Sheen, who is still blaming herself, Professor X stretched out his hand to appease the girl and used his super ability. Combat power may be average, but when it comes to psychological tutors, Professor X is absolutely top-notch. Chance? It won't be long. Professor X raised his head, looking at the screen with a somewhat obscure gaze. Countdown. Here we go. Countdown to exposure of the 11th contained object. 8 hours and 23 minutes. On the other side of the pit. Brush, brush, brush. Well-trained agents gather rapidly towards the place where the target is found, in order to prevent guys with ulterior motives from causing trouble. SHIELD even brought a lot of heavy weapons, loaded with live ammunition, enough to fight a small war. Surrounded by agents, Mayor Falkman makes his debut. The black bald head is very dazzling under the sunlight, and Ian Lau is full of style. Actually, I think you could wear a hat. Wanda struggled to get up from the ground, but the glare of the light made her squint her eyes slightly. Hat. Nick Fury's mouth twitched slightly. Braised Dan wanted to get mad, but Wanda's strong strength made him endure it. He also wants to PY a wave and trick Wanda into a full member of the Avengers Alliance. Alter Reality's origin magic power. This is too much to eat. I will try to consider your suggestion. Actually, Director, you only need to go out every day and buy oil without wiping it off. At least, the reflective effect won't be as good. Phil Coulson's weak voice sounded beside him. Turning his head, he was greeted with the cold gaze of marinated egg. The Karka Desert and the subbase in Afghanistan, it seems that there is no shortage of personnel in charge. Deputy, what do you think? The cold voice of braised egg sounded, making Phil Coulson smile awkwardly. The voice of complaining came to an abrupt end. Humph. Only then did Brain turn his head in satisfaction. If he can't deal with Wanda, he won't be able to deal with you? He is the king of agents. There are too many hungry wolves staring at this place. It's not a place to chat. Let's get on the fighter plane first. Nick Fury, stern-faced, looks a lot more serious. And it's almost time. Nick Fury pointed to the screen in the sky. The constantly beating time hit the last line of defense in Wanda's heart. Rely solely on your own origin magic power. Obviously not enough to resist those weird and powerful containment objects. She has already stumbled on it twice. Perhaps she could try more possibilities. Since it's your sincere invitation, let's force it. Wanda let go and took the initiative to follow behind the marinated egg. Countdown, 7 hours and 32 minutes. Kamartaj, when no one knew, Odin, the king of Asgard, quietly arrived at this magical holy land. In an unknown location, in the Nine Realms, two top-level Godfather powerhouses had a cordial meeting. But the atmosphere is obviously not as heavy as other people imagined. Does memory cleaning work? Odin frowned, a look of concern in his eyes. Although he is also proficient in some magic, but compared with the ancient one called Sorcerer Supreme, there is still some gap in these aspects, and it is definitely more prudent to concern his own stupid son, Thor Odin. It has basically succeeded. Ancient One whispered softly. All kinds of cleaning magic have been used, and Thor's whole body was almost knocked out with one palm. Call. That's good. Odin breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it works. If Thor has been indulging in the influence of SCP-166, then Asgard's next God King will be abolished. Those weird containments. It's really too difficult to deal with, not only because of its strength, but also because of its strange rules. The next anomaly is coming again. Are you ready? Odin pointed to the sky. His vicissitudes face was a little dignified. New containment. New countdown. Only 0 hours, 58 minutes left. Prepare. Ancient One frowned. The ever-changing countdown in the sky is, for countless people, an approaching trial. For these Asgardians, it is a heavy responsibility. Ordinary people can watch the theater. How can they wait anxiously for the judgment to come? But they, all of them, have to rush forward with all their strength. Try to fight for a chance. This time, Ancient One looked at the countdown that was about to reach 0 and shook his head solemnly. I can't make a move. Although she really wanted to do something, the two forces in her body hadn't reached a balance yet. Ancient One is now maintained entirely by the Eye of Agamotto, constantly resetting time and space, and finally finding a balance from countless opportunities, and is grasping that feeling to make the Emperor rebalance and stabilize. Using magic to help Thor and the Hulk remember clearly is already the limit of what she can do. If you rush to fight again, whether it can solve the problem is one thing. The power imbalance in her body is the most dangerous thing. On one side is Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension, who is coveting the earth. One side is the unknown divine dragon mother from the upper reaches of time and space. No matter which side collapses, it will be a catastrophe for the earth, a proper doomsday disaster. I see. Odin nodded, his eyes a little dignified, feeling slightly depressed. The powerful posture of Ancient One before, indeed, has a great hidden danger. The top combat power in the Nine Realms is missing a corner. It also means that the responsibility on his shoulders has become a bit heavier. Rest assured, my condition has initially stabilized. Dr. Strange will take over Eye of Agamotto and replace me. Ancient One definitely knew the worries in Odin's heart and said with a smile, Strange, the young magician? Odin's eyes moved slightly, and he quickly locked onto Zheng Sheng from his memory. That's right. Strange is the best of us. You could trust him. Ancient One nodded. Maybe. Odin murmured softly, non-committal. He didn't want to spend time questioning Ancient One's words, because it was meaningless. Time will tell. TB. A new containment has arrived. On the screen across the sky, the beating countdown finally stopped again. The sword of Darmos hanging above his head finally came down. Ding! Countdown to 0. Exposure. The 11th containment object, SCP-2935, is absolutely dead. The dim screen slowly lights up, appearing in the eyes of countless people. It is somewhat different from before. There is no direct focus on a certain object close-up, so that everyone can notice the original at a glance. 2. A wide-angle shot came directly. The field of view keeps changing. It's like shooting a bird's-eye view video from high altitude with a drone. The pictures on the screen are constantly changing, as if the whole world is being photographed, and soon the famous places of interest are flashed. The territory is from west to east, and soon spread all over the world, and it is still extending to the galaxy. It doesn't seem like a big deal. It is very similar to their environment, like a one-to-one reproduction. But the scene in the picture has a kind of indescribable desolation. Why? Why does it feel weird? Countless people rubbed their arms. Goosebumps kept popping up, and there was an indescribable weirdness and uneasiness in my heart. Soon, they discovered the source of the uneasiness. Quiet. It's so quiet. It seems to be the same as where everyone lives. But the content in the picture is quiet and scary. The sound cannot be transmitted through the picture, but they can see the dead atmosphere in the picture. No shuttles, no crowds. Even the planes in the sky, the railways on the ground, and even the subway buses that shuttle through the city have all come to a standstill. Various vehicles are randomly displayed on the road, just like car models. If you look carefully, you can also find thick dust hanging on the glass windows. It's just like it's been a long time since there was human activity. Not only humans, but even animals could not find any signs of activity. An indescribable silence filled the world. It was as if all life forms had disappeared. Corpses were lying here and there on the ground, all stiff and motionless like dried bacon. Exposure video flashes back too quickly. I can't see the specific situation clearly, but what I can be sure of is that there are countless dead men lying on the ground, and there is no one to stop and clean up the scene. It is so desolate and shocking. EA, where did it all go? Similar thoughts flashed through countless people's minds. Alive, where did the living go? In such a huge world, why didn't a single living person see it? Top, this world, does it mean our world? The red and refined barrage floated by. It made countless people watching the information on the internet feel chills down their backs. The extremely familiar world has fallen into dead silence in the exposed screen. It has been almost 10 minutes, and not even a living person has appeared. Is this to say that their world will completely die? Absolutely dead. Could this SCP be an unreasonable death? Fear. Install. All kinds of negative emotions spread among the crowd like a virus, sweeping the entire network. A dead world. Our world. Nick Fury's pupils shrunk, and his stern expression almost couldn't hold back. Have the results of the Intelligence Analysis Department come out? What is the situation in the dead world in the video? Nick Fury's face was gloomy. Did not expect. This time the containment has only just begun to come to light. Just throwing such a big melon, it scared countless people. The words, customs, and habits that appear in the screen all conform to the local conditions. According to the preliminary analysis of the picture, the similarity is as high as 90%, and it is. No one knows that such a city once existed on Earth, and it was erased abruptly by the terrifying power. Tread, tread. The X-Men soared into the sky, searching for an inch of land around with super ability. Even Professor X, who has been staying in the Mutant Academy and the 10,000-year dead house, has rarely come to the field. Psychokinesis pours out, scattered out. It keeps searching around like a radar. Next to the busy figures of the X-Men, there are countless agents dispatched, the sound of fighter planes roaring in the ear, various searchlights and radars illuminate, busy, looking for something. The two forces did not affect each other, and were afraid of their respective strengths, so they did not fight. Found it, almost at the same time. The voices sounded from the mouths of the two forces at the same time. The mutants rushed towards Phoenix excitedly, and the SHIELD agents gathered towards Scarlet Witch on the other side. Sorry, this mission failed and let you down. Sheen stood up unsteadily. He covered his head and looked at Professor X, with a bit of apology and self-blame on his face. This is Mutant's best chance to step up to the stage. Wham! Get screwed by yourself. I'm sorry. Professor X shook his head. His tone was extremely firm. There's no need to say sorry to anyone. This time, you've done enough. It was me who was too reckless. I sent you out without determining the danger and the strength of the opponent. Failure is my responsibility as the commander. Professor X took the responsibility directly. Unlike Magneto, his character is to start with himself first, and then to others. It is never a character to push the fault to other people and get used to blaming others. Besides, this time the containment came, and their mutants didn't get rich. At least, Qin has truly awakened the Phoenix Force, attracting the attention of the most powerful original force in the original universe. And being able to borrow his power has entered the top level of combat power on the Earth. As Qin continues to become stronger, she can borrow more and more Phoenix Forces. Mutant finally has an ace that cannot be ignored, as long as the strength is strong enough. Sooner or later, there will be a day to go to the stage. This containment is so powerful that Professor X can't believe that the next containment can be so perverted. As the storage continues to increase, there will always be a time when their mutant shows up. Rest assured, we still have a chance. Seeing Qin, who is still blaming herself, Professor X stretched out his hand to appease the girl and used his super ability. Combat power may be average, but when it comes to psychological tutors, Professor X is absolutely top-notch. Chance? It won't be long. Professor X raised his head, looking at the screen with a somewhat obscure gaze. Countdown. Here we go. Countdown to exposure of the 11th contained object. 8 hours and 23 minutes. On the other side of the pit. Brush, brush, brush. Well-trained agents gather rapidly towards the place where the target is found, in order to prevent guys with ulterior motives from causing trouble. SHIELD even brought a lot of heavy weapons, loaded with live ammunition, enough to fight a small war. Surrounded by agents, Mayor Falkman makes his debut. The black bald head is very dazzling under the sunlight, and Ian Lau is full of style. Actually, I think you could wear a hat. Wanda struggled to get up from the ground, but the glare of the light made her squint her eyes slightly. Nick Fury's mouth twitched slightly. Braised Dan wanted to get mad, but Wanda's strong strength made him endure it. He also wants to PY a wave and trick Wanda into a full member of the Avengers Alliance. Alter Reality's origin magic power. This is too much to eat. I will try to consider your suggestion. Actually, Director, you only need to go out every day and buy oil without wiping it off. At least, the reflective effect won't be as good. Phil Coulson's weak voice sounded beside him. Turning his head, he was greeted with the cold gaze of marinated egg. The Karka Desert and the subbase in Afghanistan, it seems that there is no shortage of personnel in charge. Deputy, what do you think? The cold voice of braised egg sounded, making Phil Coulson smile awkwardly. The voice of complaining came to an abrupt end. Humph! Only then did Brain turn his head in satisfaction. If he can't deal with Wanda, he won't be able to deal with you? He is the king of agents. There are too many hungry wolves staring at this place. It's not a place to chat. Let's get on the fighter plane first. Nick Fury, stern-faced, looks a lot more serious. And it's almost time. Nick Fury pointed to the screen in the sky. The constantly beating time hit the last line of defense in Wanda's heart. Rely solely on your own origin magic power. Obviously not enough to resist those weird and powerful containment objects. She has already stumbled on it twice. Perhaps she could try more possibilities. Since it's your sincere invitation, let's force it. Wanda let go and took the initiative to follow behind the marinated egg. Countdown, 7 hours and 32 minutes. Kamartash, when no one knew, Odin, the king of Asgard, quietly arrived at this magical holy land. In an unknown location. In the 9 realms, 2 top-level Godfather powerhouses had a cordial meeting. But the atmosphere is obviously not as heavy as other people imagined. Does memory cleaning work? Odin frowned, a look of concern in his eyes. although he is also proficient in some magic, but compared with the Ancient One called Sorcerer Supreme, there is still some gap in these aspects, and it is definitely more prudent to concern his own stupid son, Thor Odin. It has basically succeeded, Ancient One whispered softly. All kinds of cleaning magic have been used, and Thor's whole body was almost knocked out with one palm. Call. That's good. Odin breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it works. If Thor has been indulging in the influence of SCP-166, then Asgard's next God King will be abolished. Those weird containments. It's really too difficult to deal with, not only because of its strength, but also because of its strange rules. The next anomaly is coming again. Are you ready? Odin pointed to the sky. His vicissitudes face was a little dignified. New containment. New countdown. Only 0 hours, 58 minutes left. Prepare. Ancient One frowned. The ever-changing countdown in the sky is, for countless people, an approaching trial. For these Asgardians, it is a heavy responsibility. Ordinary people can watch the theater. How can they wait anxiously for the judgment to come? But they, all of them, have to rush forward with all their strength. Try to fight for a chance. This time, Ancient One looked at the countdown that was about to reach 0 and shook his head solemnly. I can't make a move. Although she really wanted to do something, the two forces in her body hadn't reached a balance yet. Ancient One is now maintained entirely by the Eye of Agamotto, constantly resetting time and space, and finally finding a balance from countless opportunities, and is grasping that feeling to make the Emperor rebalance and stabilize. Using magic to help Thor and the Hulk remember clearly is already the limit of what she can do. If you rush to fight again, whether it can solve the problem is one thing. The power imbalance in her body is the most dangerous thing. On one side is Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark. No one knows that such a city once existed on Earth, and it was erased abruptly by the terrifying power. Tread! The X-Men soared into the sky, searching for an inch of land around with super ability. Even Professor X, who has been staying in the Mutant Academy and the 10,000-year dead house, has rarely come to the field. Psychokinesis pours out, scattered out. It keeps searching around like a radar. Next to the busy figures of the X-Men, there are countless agents dispatched, the sound of fighter planes roaring in the ear, various searchlights and radars illuminate, busy, looking for something. The two forces did not affect each other, and were afraid of their respective strengths, so they did not fight. Found it, almost at the same time. The voices sounded from the mouths of the two forces at the same time. The mutants rushed towards Phoenix excitedly, and the SHIELD agents gathered towards Scarlet Witch on the other side. Sorry, this mission failed and let you down. Sheen stood up unsteadily. He covered his head and looked at Professor X, with a bit of apology and self-blame on his face. This is Mutant's best chance to step up to the stage. Get screwed by yourself. I'm sorry. Professor X shook his head. His tone was extremely firm. There's no need to say sorry to anyone. This time, you've done enough. It was me who was too reckless. I sent you out without determining the danger and the strength of the opponent. Failure is my responsibility as the commander. Professor X took the responsibility directly. Unlike Magneto, his character is to start with himself first, and then to others. It is never a character to push the fault to other people and get used to blaming others. Besides, this time the containment came, and their mutants didn't get rich. At least, Sheen has truly awakened the Phoenix Force, attracting the attention of the most powerful original force in the original universe, and being able to borrow his power has entered the top level of combat power on the Earth. As Sheen continues to become stronger, she can borrow more and more Phoenix Forces. Mutant finally has an ace that cannot be ignored, as long as the strength is strong enough. Sooner or later, there will be a day to go to the stage. This containment is so powerful that Professor X can't believe that the next containment can be so perverted. As the storage continues to increase, there will always be a time when their mutant shows up. Rest assured, we still have a chance. Seeing Chin, who was still blaming herself, Professor X stretched out his hand to appease the girl and used his super ability. Combat power may be average, but when it comes to psychological tutors, Professor X is absolutely top-notch. Chance, it won't be long. Professor X raised his head, looking at the screen with a somewhat obscure gaze. Countdown. Here we go. Countdown to exposure of the 11th contained object. 8 hours and 23 minutes. On the other side of the pit. Brush, brush, brush. Well-trained agents gather rapidly towards the place where the target is found, in order to prevent guys with ulterior motives from causing trouble. SHIELD even brought a lot of heavy weapons, loaded with live ammunition, enough to fight a small war. Surrounded by agents, Mayor Falkman makes his debut. The black bald head is very dazzling under the sunlight, and Ian Lau is full of style. Actually, I think you could wear a hat. Wanda struggled to get up from the ground, but the glare of the light made her squint her eyes slightly. Nick Fury's mouth twitched slightly. Braised Ann wanted to get mad, but Wanda's strong strength made him endure it. He also wants to PY a wave and trick Wanda into a full member of the Avengers Alliance. Alter Reality's origin magic power. This is too much to eat. I will try to consider your suggestion. Actually, Director, you only need to go out every day and buy oil without wiping it off. At least, the reflective effect won't be as good. Phil Coulson's weak voice sounded beside him. Turning his head, he was greeted with the cold gaze of marinated egg. The Karka Desert and the subbase in Afghanistan, it seems that there is no shortage of personnel in charge. Deputy, what do you think? The cold voice of braised egg sounded, making Phil Coulson smile awkwardly. The voice of complaining came to an abrupt end. Humph! Only then did Brain turn his head in satisfaction. If he can't deal with Wanda, he won't be able to deal with you? He is the king of agents. There are too many hungry wolves staring at this place. It's not a place to chat. Let's get on the fighter plane first. Nick Fury, stern-faced, looks a lot more serious. And it's almost time. Nick Fury pointed to the screen in the sky. The constantly beating time hit the last line of defense in Wanda's heart. Rely solely on your own origin magic power. Obviously not enough to resist those weird and powerful containment objects. She has already stumbled on it twice. Perhaps she could try more possibilities. Since it's your sincere invitation, let's force it. Wanda let go and took the initiative to follow behind the marinated egg. Countdown, 7 hours and 32 minutes. Kamartash, when no one knew, Odin, the king of Asgard, quietly arrived at this magical holy land. In an unknown location. In the 9 realms, 2 top-level Godfather powerhouses had a cordial meeting. But the atmosphere is obviously not as heavy as other people imagined. Does memory cleaning work? Odin frowned, a look of concern in his eyes. Although he is also proficient in some magic, but compared with the ancient one called Sorcerer Supreme, there is still some gap in these aspects, and it is definitely more prudent to concern his own stupid son, Thor Odin. It has basically succeeded. Ancient One whispered softly. All kinds of cleaning magic have been used, and Thor's whole body was almost knocked out with one palm. Call. That's good. Odin breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it works. If Thor has been indulging in the influence of SCP-166, then Asgard's next God King will be abolished. Those weird containments. It's really too difficult to deal with, not only because of its strength, but also because of its strange rules. The next anomaly is coming again. Are you ready? Odin pointed to the sky. His vicissitudes face was a little dignified. New containment. New countdown. Only 0 hours, 58 minutes left. Prepare. Ancient One frowned. The ever-changing countdown in the sky is, for countless people, an approaching trial. For these Asgardians, it is a heavy responsibility. Ordinary people can watch the theater. How can they wait anxiously for the judgment to come? But they, all of them, have to rush forward with all their strength. Try to fight for a chance. This time, Ancient One looked at the countdown that was about to reach 0 and shook his head solemnly. I can't make a move. Although she really wanted to do something, the two forces in her body hadn't reached a balance yet. Ancient One is now maintained entirely by the Eye of Agamotto, constantly resetting time and space, and finally finding a balance from countless opportunities, and is grasping that feeling to make the Emperor rebalance and stabilize. Using magic to help Thor and the Hulk remember clearly is already the limit of what she can do. If you rush to fight again, whether it can solve the problem is one thing. The power imbalance in her body is the most dangerous thing. On one side is Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark. No one knows that such a city once existed on Earth, and it was erased abruptly by the terrifying power. Tread, tread. The X-Men soared into the sky, searching for an inch of land around with super ability. Even Professor X, who has been staying in the Mutant Academy and the 10,000-year dead house, has rarely come to the field. Psychokinesis pours out, scattered out. It keeps searching around like a radar. Next to the busy figures of the X-Men, there are countless agents dispatched, the sound of fighter planes roaring in the ear, various searchlights and radars illuminate, busy, looking for something. The two forces did not affect each other, and were afraid of their respective strengths, so they did not fight. Found it, almost at the same time. The voices sounded from the mouths of the two forces at the same time. The mutants rushed towards Phoenix excitedly, and the SHIELD agents gathered towards Scarlet Witch on the other side. Sorry, this mission failed and let you down. Sheen stood up unsteadily. He covered his head and looked at Professor X, with a bit of apology and self-blame on his face. This is Mutant's best chance to step up to the stage. Wham! Get screwed by yourself. I'm sorry. Professor X shook his head. His tone was extremely firm. There's no need to say sorry to anyone. This time, you've done enough. It was me who was too reckless. I sent you out without determining the danger and the strength of the opponent. Failure is my responsibility as the commander. Professor X took the responsibility directly. Unlike Magneto, his character is to start with himself first, and then to others. It is never a character to push the fault to other people and get used to blaming others. Besides, this time the containment came, and their mutants didn't get rich. At least, Sheen has truly awakened the Phoenix Force, attracting the attention of the most powerful original force in the original universe, and being able to borrow his power has entered the top level of combat power on the Earth. As Sheen continues to become stronger, she can borrow more and more Phoenix Forces. Mutant finally has an ace that cannot be ignored, as long as the strength is strong enough. Sooner or later, there will be a day to go to the stage. This containment is so powerful that Professor X can't believe that the next containment can be so perverted. As the storage continues to increase, there will always be a time when their mutant shows up. Rest assured, we still have a chance. Seeing Sheen, who is still blaming herself, Professor X stretched out his hand to appease the girl and used his super ability. Combat power may be average, but when it comes to psychological tutors, Professor X is absolutely top-notch. Chance? It won't be long. Professor X raised his head, looking at the screen with a somewhat obscure gaze. Countdown. Here we go. Countdown to exposure of the 11th contained object. 8 hours and 23 minutes. On the other side of the pit. Brush, brush, brush. Well-trained agents gather rapidly towards the place where the target is found, in order to prevent guys with ulterior motives from causing trouble. SHIELD even brought a lot of heavy weapons, loaded with live ammunition, enough to fight a small war. Surrounded by agents, Mayor Falkman makes his debut. The black bald head is very dazzling under the sunlight, and Ian Lau is full of style. Actually, I think you could wear a hat. Wanda struggled to get up from the ground, but the glare of the light made her squint her eyes slightly. Hat. Nick Fury's mouth twitched slightly. Bray's Dan wanted to get mad, but Wanda's strong strength made him endure it. He also wants to PY a wave and trick Wanda into a full member of the Avengers Alliance. Alter Reality's origin magic power. This is too much to eat. I will try to consider your suggestion. Actually, Director, You only need to go out every day and buy oil without wiping it off. At least, the reflective effect won't be as good. Phil Coulson's weak voice sounded beside him. Turning his head, he was greeted with the cold gaze of marinated egg. The Karka Desert and the subbase in Afghanistan, it seems that there is no shortage of personnel in charge. Deputy, what do you think? The cold voice of braised egg sounded, making Phil Coulson smile awkwardly. The voice of complaining came to an abrupt end. Humph! Only then did Brain turn his head in satisfaction. If he can't deal with Wanda, he won't be able to deal with you? He is the king of agents. There are too many hungry wolves staring at this place. It's not a place to chat. Let's get on the fighter plane first. Nick Fury, stern-faced, looks a lot more serious. And it's almost time. Nick Fury pointed to the screen in the sky. The constantly beating time hit the last line of defense in Wanda's heart. Rely solely on your own origin magic power. Obviously not enough to resist those weird and powerful containment objects. She has already stumbled on it twice. Perhaps she could try more possibilities. Since it's your sincere invitation, let's force it. Wanda let go and took the initiative to follow behind the marinated egg. Countdown, 7 hours and 32 minutes. Kamartash, when no one knew, Odin, the king of Asgard, quietly arrived at this magical holy land. In an unknown location, in the 9 realms, 2 top-level godfather powerhouses had a cordial meeting. But the atmosphere is obviously not as heavy as other people imagined. Does memory cleaning work? Odin frowned, a look of concern in his eyes. Although he is also proficient in some magic, but compared with the ancient one called Sorcerer Supreme, there is still some gap in these aspects, and it is definitely more prudent to concern his own stupid son, Thor Odin. It has basically succeeded. Ancient One whispered softly. All kinds of cleaning magic have been used, and Thor's whole body was almost knocked out with one palm. Call. That's good. Odin breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it works. If Thor has been indulging in the influence of SCP-166, then Asgard's next God King will be abolished. Those weird containments. It's really too difficult to deal with, not only because of its strength, but also because of its strange rules. The next anomaly is coming again. Are you ready? Odin pointed to the sky. His vicissitudes face was a little dignified. New containment. New countdown. Only 0 hours, 58 minutes left. Prepare. Ancient One frowned. The ever-changing countdown in the sky is, for countless people, an approaching trial. For these Asgardians, it is a heavy responsibility. Ordinary people can watch the theater. How can they wait anxiously for the judgment to come? But they, all of them, have to rush forward with all their strength. Try to fight for a chance. This time, Ancient One looked at the countdown that was about to reach 0 and shook his head solemnly. I can't make a move. Although she really wanted to do something, the 2 forces in her body hadn't reached a balance yet. Ancient One is now maintained entirely by the Eye of Agamotto, constantly resetting time and space, and finally finding a balance from countless opportunities, and is grasping that feeling to make the Emperor rebalance and stabilize. Using magic to help Thor and the Hulk remember clearly is already the limit of what she can do. If you rush to fight again, whether it can solve the problem is one thing. The power imbalance in her body is the most dangerous thing. On one side is Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark. These mechs also hold the power to travel through space. It can enter the political center and military abdomen anytime and anywhere to carry out precise strikes. This is simply 1,000,000 times more powerful than nuclear deterrence. A disagreement pushes the crystal, the kind that can't be stopped. This is that the power you researched from the Tesseract. Nick Fury's voice was a little hoarse. Don't worry, the real drama is yet to come. Tony, who was driving Iron Man, couldn't see his expression clearly. Only a dull voice sounded from the machine. With a lot of self-confidence. This is the real automata. Across time and space? This is just an insignificant type of mech power. Tony stared straight ahead. His eyes seemed to be filled with terrifying divine light. Traveling through time and space is just the easiest use of Tesseract, Tony said nonchalantly. He still underestimated the horror of the completion program. With the help of the completion program, Tony relied on his amazing brain to easily let the mech in his hand, the battle suit, iterate again, and it has become the fourth version. Ultron 4 has a special transmission system. When more than 5 mechas are gathered together, they can use the Li Huang, which is similar to the time-traveling march just now. And the most important thing is control. Even across a universe, across an unknown space-time channel, Tony can manipulate these mechs. Tony looked down. In the eyes under the helmet, there is a divine radiance. He thought it was Tesseract, a special power formed with the help of space characteristics. But I didn't expect. This is basically self-filling from the completion program. From another supreme divinity. A supreme divinity who may be dead. Tony, can you control the actions of those mechs? Nick Fury turned his head in surprise. In Multiverse control, there is also a containment in a horrible location. This technology is not only leading on the Earth, but also the top of the interstellar first class in the universe, right? Tony smiled slyly and didn't say much. Instead, he turned his gaze to the screen. Time march. I have completely stepped into the cave of SCP-2935 and entered another universe. After stepping out of the cave, the world suddenly opened up, and they came directly to a wide road. But judging from the traces just made on the road, they were definitely not the first batch of people visited by SCP-2935. Before them, there should be several groups of people entering, and there is no shortage of people with super abilities. The road was ravaged by the aftermath of the battle, and it looks a little dilapidated, but the traces are very new. It should have happened not long ago. But none of this has anything to do with Tony. He didn't come to fight. The mecha troops continued to go deep inside along the road, looking for the source of the catastrophe. What a weird 21st world. Tony frowned. Ultron 4 can realize holographic manipulation. After choosing a mecha as the driver and wearing the corresponding instruments and equipment, you can see a different kind of sight. It's like the player controls the game account, and the 5 senses communicate. You can perfectly feel the mech you are controlling and the things you touch. It's almost like crossing. It's just that it has become a Ultron from mecha by virtue of it. Tony definitely could hear everything around him. Silence. Deathly silence. Except for the sound they made when they stepped on the ground, there was no sound. Not only humans, but even animals, plants, and even insects have no sounds. This is too exaggerated, B. Thor, who was also driving a mecha, was a little taken aback. And what's even more interesting, in the exposure screen, the observed area should be the same as the outside. But they looked through the mecha, but the scenery they saw with their own eyes was very dim. The scenery in another mirror universe seems to be missing all the color and vitality. The grass is withered. There are no trees, no shrubs. It doesn't look like their world at all. Some kind of strange reflection. It makes people feel creepy. There is a situation. Captain America, who was scattered to search for the situation, drove the mech to send out a signal. Humanity. Traces of human presence were found. Signal flares sounded. In the internal communication network, several people who heard the voice quickly rushed over in their mechs. It is a farmhouse. After approaching for several kilometers away from the road, I finally found the human habitation. But it's dead now. The powerful power of the mecha allowed them to easily break through the door and walk in. Look up. The lights can be seen still on, and the electrical system appears to be working fine. However, after lowering his head and entering the room, he found a terrible scene. Several adult corpses, 3 female corpses, and a male were sitting at the dining table together, as if preparing to eat. A baby boy and girl were lying on the ground nearby. If from here, it can also be said that the family seems to have died normally, if not so badly. But when the details are also after exposure. Bacteria, there are no bacteria and microorganisms on these corpses. Tony's pupils trembled, and his expression was extremely shocked. You ask him why he can distinguish these microscopic creatures with the naked eye? Joke. Ground. Apparently dead for days. Even the older corpses didn't smell of corruption at all. There was no obvious cause of death on the body, and the last meal at home was still there. The chicken, mashed potatoes, and other dishes on the table looked cold and hard, but there was no sign of corruption or deterioration at all. It's just like microorganisms and bacteria are also killed together. Natasha Romanoff swallowed. Even her agent who walked out of the Red House felt a little creepy. This absolutely conceptual death. Not only humans, animals, but even microorganisms, which cannot be detected by the naked eye, cannot escape the concept of death. This is much more terrifying than what the zombie universe sounds like. The bottommost microbes and bacteria die. For nature, it is an irreversible biological collapse. Same picture. It wasn't just the members of the Avengers Alliance who were manipulating the mechs. And stay in front of the screen. Countless people watching the progress of the exposure video. Everything the Avengers experienced was broadcasted in real time on the screen. Die. Ancient One and Odin frowned. Although it had been expected, the tragedy in the picture still made their expressions a little dignified. From macro to micro, downright death. No being is exempt from this. This feeling, it is really complicated. Especially, this mirror universe looks highly similar to the world they are in. Can't microbes escape? The observer's expression was a little ugly. The bottom link of the biosphere also completely collapsed, which means that this universe completely collapsed. It can't be cured. Hopeless. Wait to die. Unless the five gods take action to reshape. Otherwise, even the top cosmic powerhouses would find it difficult to do anything under such circumstances. A universe that is completely dead. Purple Sweet Potato Essence, who was sitting high on the throne, slowly opened his eyes. While the Infinity Gauntlet has yet to be collected, Mia's supremacy has taken shape. A completely dead universe. It is definitely the best gift for offering sacrifices. Thanos' eyes move slightly. Although it is true that he is a family planning director, he is also a thorough licking dog by the god of death. And if the cause of death in this universe can be eliminated, something moved on Thanos' face. In this case, he'll get a whole new universe. The desire to snap your fingers and wipe out half the population of the universe equally can be changed into a transfer, as long as there is only half the population in each universe. So, even if no one is killed, his population erasure plan will be successful. Essentially, Thanos is not the slayer. He doesn't feel excited by killing. He is only on the road of practicing his ideals. So in the battle to snatch gems, facing Tony's attack, Thanos will say, "You are not the only one cursed by knowledge," and give Tony the same respect, because in his mind, essentially, he and Tony are one of kind. Fleet, go to Earth. Thanos' low voice rang out. Countless fleets docked at the side of the planet set sail, one after another. He had to participate in this battle, and his identity as a dog of death and an idealist made him unable to give up. When the content in the exposure screen, implement, and with a more terrifying posture, after appearing in the eyes of everyone, more cosmic powerhouses began to move towards the small broken ball in the distant galaxy, cast coveted eyes, and even set off directly. In the mirror universe of SCP-2935, idyllic farmhouse. Going out of the house and into the fields, the surrounding villages die in exactly the same way. Around, there are no living organisms at all. No matter how hard they searched, they could not find any signs of life. Tony, who was sorting out the items in the village and trying to find some clues, suddenly raised his head. Radio. The mecha unit who was searching for clues sent a message at the same time. The mediocre radio was not eye-catching at first, but the signature made Tony's eyes widen. Foundation. It's the Foundation in this mirror universe. The radio they send out. The degree of encryption is not high and can be easily deciphered. The content is converted from electromagnetic signals to voice. Almost all of our network communications have been interrupted, which may be caused by a containment breach of unknown scale. All people should stay at home in accordance with the instructions and wait for the containment team to deal with the breach. This message will be released from 2016. It will start broadcasting on April 20th, 2019 until... The sound stopped abruptly, as if it had suffered some horror. It stopped suddenly. SHILD. Gulp. In the quiet conference room, there was only the constant sound of saliva spitting, temporarily disengaged from the control mecha. Look at the companions around. Several members of the Avengers Alliance looked at each other with cold expressions. In a mirror universe constructed by SCP-2935, there is actually a Foundation. Captain America's expression was a little dignified. This is so unexpected. Should be. Ancient One Magician's previous inference is that there are countless foundations in countless timelines, each guarding the timelines and corresponding dimensions, resisting the invasion of other forces. Dr. Strange chimed in. Is this what matters now? It's the Foundation. The Foundation in the mirror universe is probably also involved in the concept of death and is completely dead. Tony's expression was a little ugly. No wonder he thought so. The content deciphered by the radio is really scary. T6. Abrupt ellipsis. When it came to the last critical moment, the sound actually stagnated. It's just like ordinary people who died without warning. Could it be? The Foundation was also swept by the concept of death and died without warning. That's why there's a possible pause in the radio. The more I think about it, the more afraid I become. The more I am afraid, the more I think about it. It was just a sign of rising. But as it was constantly brewing and growing in my heart, it soon turned into a towering giant tree. Foundation. It was also affected by this force and fell into dead silence. 573, after receiving a summons from Dr. Strange. Ancient One and Odin looked at each other for a long time, and the group finally recovered from the stiffness. Foundation. Even the Foundation in the mirror universe. Absolutely unimaginable horror. The Foundation in their universe can erase concepts with a single spear, and no one knows where its limit is. The Foundation of the mirror universe, even if it is not comparable, is not weak. The Foundation that can deal with SCPs and anomalies is definitely in existence above countless organizations. Now, even this kind of organization beyond imagination. All are suspected to perish in a universe constructed by SCP-2935. This time, what exactly is the containment we are facing? Odin felt an indescribable palpitation in his heart. Unspeakable uneasiness. It is countless times more terrifying than the Ragnarok that I have predicted. Horror beyond imagination. In this mirror universe, there is actually a Foundation. The observer frowned. At first, he thought that the death of a universe was because there was no Foundation to resist SCP. So, with those strange contained objects, the power continues to spread, which then leads to the spread of the concept of death. But, now it seems, obviously not. After actively responding, there is still no sign of death. And, looking at this posture, it is very possible that the entire universe is under the shadow of the concept of death. Is this the true power of the containment? The observer swallowed. From the bottom of my heart, I feel the horror. Just one SCP, anomaly. It can kill the entire mirror universe. This is no less than many original artifacts. The lighter in his hand can only have this kind of power when it explodes to the limit, etc. Perhaps. We still have a way to confirm. Tony's steady voice sounded in the silent conference room. 682. SCP. 682 is not a fire lizard, the so-called immortal monster. If the Foundation exists in the mirror universe, there must also be the unholy lizard. We can follow the direction of the radio, looking for Foundation headquarters. Use SCP-682 to verify. See what the limit of this absolute death is. Tony's voice was like the evening drum and the morning bell. Break the inherent deadlock. Yes, SCP-2935 is absolute death. But isn't SCP-682 also called immortal? It is entirely possible to use this point to see what the limit of this concept of death is. This wave is called Beat Magic with Magic. SHHHHHH. Countless streamers shot up into the sky. When the power of the mecha is raised to the highest level, the Ultron 4 mecha in extreme speed is not inferior to the speed-type super ability 1 at all. You can't see after images clearly, but you can only see countless streamers blooming. This is the power of technology. Maybe it's also the force of coercion. Drip, drip. Positioning shown in radar exploration. It may be because of the sudden death catastrophe that paralyzed all detections within the Foundation. Following the direction of radio propagation, the mecha quickly found its direction. Each mecha is equivalent to a small analysis table. Thousands of mechas are jointly deduced, and the speed is even more terrifying than that of national organizations. It is definitely a technology ahead of the times. It's over there, Tony murmured softly, and quickly locked onto the target location. Walk. There is no hesitation. With the sound of Tony's command, the power system was fully activated. Rumble. Rolling sound waves pass through the sky. There are white lines drawn in the clouds, like a plane passing by. Zila. Roar. The sound of the mecha landing. Although he was afraid of the weirdness in the mirror universe and the power of the Foundation, Tony did not choose to start the space jump. But the mecha troops advancing at full speed are also not slow. The goal was reached soon. Is it here? Natasha Romanoff steered the mech forward. The front looked like an ordinary building bunker. It should be below. Tony walked slowly from behind. Foundation. The veil of mystery. Is it finally going to be revealed? Nick Fury's pupils shrunk. Looking at the content of the screen in the video, the expression was a little uncontrollable excitement. Start with showing up. It has always been surrounded by clouds and fog, hiding in the mist and making it difficult to see clearly. But every time the tip of the iceberg is revealed, it will make people frightened and shocked. The terrifying power is simply terrifying beyond imagination. This kind of indescribable giant strength actually appeared on the Earth. Just like Shinsho Village, where there is an ultimate boss, it is an unimaginable oppression for every organization. Now, finally, I can take the initiative to lift a corner of his veil. Braised eggs definitely excited, even excited a little out of control. The Foundation in the mirror universe. He is also a foundation in essence. Don't take bean buns as dry food. Even in the ruins, you can find a lot of useful things. Or, only this kind of crippled or even destroyed Foundation base has the qualifications for them to pick up leaks. Heyday? Where is the coolness and where to stay? Is the veil about to be revealed? Ancient One frowned, instinctively wanted to use Eye of Agamotto to predict the future in advance. After the hands-on, the queen and daughter-in-law got up. The gem has been delivered to Dr. Strange. What? Hopefully, it doesn't end in the worst possible way. Ancient One let out a long sigh. Yes, I hope the situation will not deteriorate too seriously. Oda nodded. Facing this kind of unexpected development, even he, an Ancient One, seemed weak. He can only rejoice. I didn't venture into it myself. Across a dimension, the power of SCP-2935 shouldn't affect it, right? Odin was uneasy, a little unsure. Influence. The observer frowned, trying to get some perception from SCP-2935. But the feedback and perception is just an ordinary cave. It's really not that simple. The observer shook his head. The vigilance in his heart became more dignified, and he became ready for battle. If the power that can make the mirror universe die and die is leaked out, it will definitely be a disaster. He doesn't want the world to repeat the same mistakes again, even if it's only a 1 in 10,000 possibility. He didn't dare to gamble. Mirror universe. Foundation base. I can't find the switch at all. If you wanted to say, just rush in. Thor's grumpy voice sounded. They're building bunkers all around, and there is no normal way to enter at all. As expected of the Foundation, even after all the defenses fail, they can be paralyzed by just relying on the mechanism to hide. Then go ahead. Tony nodded. Time is limited and cannot be wasted. Directly expand the metal storm to wash the ground. Truth. Always within range of the cannon. Successful. Tony raised his head unexpectedly. Unexpectedly, the real cannonball blasted open the door. Yet there is a hole that reveals a glimmer of light. But there was no joy in his heart, only heavy worry. This situation, the probability of the Foundation being born is even greater. Hashtag, it is very likely that the entire army will be wiped out. Only when the staff and the base inside disappeared completely would it be possible to tolerate the door being forcibly opened by outsiders. Tony left half of the mecha troops outside and began to garrison, and the rest entered sequentially. With apprehension in mind, everyone manipulated their mechas and walked slowly into the underground base. Fortunately, the lift was still working. However, when they walked out of the dark passage, they came to the Foundation's underground base square. The sight in front of them made them too scared to say a word. Far away, Zilala, the fire was still burning, and the wrecked fighter plane seemed to have fallen directly from the sky above the landing platform. The underground dome high above is dotted with bright lights everywhere. But under the illumination of lights. But it wasn't the warm sense of security, but the corpses scattered all over the place. All kinds of staff members wearing Foundation uniforms, without exception, fell on the cold floor. Someone is holding documents in their hands. Someone is operating machinery. Someone was trying to FM. They all fell down at work or halfway through the action, and there was no painful expression on their faces, as if death came without warning. Many people, before reacting, have already fallen into death. Tony observed carefully and even found that in the mirror universe, the members of the Foundation are different from their time and space, not like clone personnel, but everyone has a different appearance like normal humans. Continue to search inside. Tony frowned. They dare not act without authorization within the Foundation, for fear of triggering an uncontrollable chain reaction. But he can completely let the mech go to rummage. As long as mechanical materials are provided, it can be manufactured in minutes. This is the most perfect consumable. Tony tried to find some hope from the underground base. 2. Constantly check out the results, but made his heart sink completely. Die, or die. They searched room by room in the administrative building of the Foundation. Even the bathroom and stairs were not spared. But it was only found that they were well-preserved corpses. Staff, researcher, doctor, special forces, reality bender. Everyone, without exception, and it looks like it's been dead for days. With the help of the Foundation's complete industrial system and equipment, Tony also temporarily collected some samples from the corpse for research, and finally discovered the reason why the corpse was well preserved. Without warning, these corpses underwent complete and sudden death on a cellular level. Even the bacteria that decomposed the corpse also died together, so the bodies were well preserved. Hateful. Looking at the spectrum in the analytical instrument, Tony couldn't help but swear to cover up his anxiety. In a world constructed by SCP-2935, death is total and absolute, and it cuts across all types of life forms. Next, Tom test that crazy idea. That's SCP-682, the immortal lizard, one of the most terrifying and deadly creatures known as immortality. Under the accelerated search of the mecha troops, clues were soon discovered. SCP-682's containment is on the lowest level of the base. Tony and his group walked into his isolation facility, only to discover a more desperate truth. SCP-682, unkillable heresy. Floating in the air, there is no place to die, and the monster who looks down on Death God is no exception. The immortal lizard also failed to escape the death rules of the mirror universe of SCP-2935. SCP-682. That monster died. Odin's pupils shrunk, his expression a little restless. There are not many other contacts, and the perception is not deep. But SCP-682 is not the fire lizard Odin, but he fought with his own hands. Odin's power broke out completely. Coupled with the blessings of the gods on the destroyer armor, the result was still bloody. The tooth marks on the gun of eternity haven't been filled yet. A blow capable of smashing stars hit Grandpa 682, but only restrained it for a while. Soon, terrifying adaptability and immortality. It evolved enough to ignore the attack of the Eternal Gun, and even crush the Eternal Gun in turn. Perverted physique. Odin couldn't think of anything that could defeat it, not to mention killing it. But now, the 682 uncle died before his eyes. Floating in the air, there is no burial place for death, and only corpses are left of the mighty monster. Let the void be his nameless tomb. Odin couldn't help but gasp. SCP-2935. What kind of monster is this? Odin clenched his fists tightly, with an indescribable seriousness on his face. His 3 views. Destroyed by the containment again. Absolute death. Is this the absolute death? The observer frowned into the word Chuan, as if with an unresolved sadness. Uncle 682, he has definitely seen it before. What happened on the Earth, a sea island, how could it be hidden from his eyes? That terrifying adaptability and immortality. Even if it was him, he still wasn't sure about killing Grandpa 682, even taking out a lighter in his arms. With his level of belief, it is difficult to erupt to this level of destruction. The observer's perception of himself is quite clear, and 682 Uncle is more than simply killed. Instead, death without warning. It died in an instant, and from its floating body, there was no trace of struggle at all. Invincible and powerful monster. The corpse actually floated in the strong hydrochloric acid solution like this. It's just like an unremarkable test specimen. Looking at this scene, I felt an indescribably complicated mood. It's too exaggerated, The corner of Thor's mouth twitched, a bit unacceptable. Everyone who looked at the exposure screen was shocked by the shock and a little dumbfounded. Not to mention, the members of the Avengers Alliance who looked directly at the corpse of 682. Reach out. It seems that they can use the technology of the 5 senses of the mecha to feel the touch of the 682 uncle. This feeling is beyond words. Come, keep exploring. Be sure to discover the cause of the death outbreak. Tony's deep voice sounded, just when I wanted to continue exploring in the mirror universe and found traces of the concept of death. Invisible's undulating bloom. Tony, who was manipulating the mecha, suddenly had a black eye and was ejected by the system. When I opened my eyes again, consciousness has returned to the war room inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Hey brother, what's going on? Battery dead? Could it be an unknown attack? A rustling sound sounded from the side. It was obvious that not only Tony, but also other members of the Avengers Alliance were all ejected by the system, disconnecting the connection and manipulation of the 5 senses and being kicked out of the mecha manipulation abruptly. Impossible. Ultron 4 is equipped with miniature nuclear reactors. For these power sources, Tony not only hollowed out the Stark industry, but even the SHIELD of the marinated egg was almost squeezed out by him. With the reactor as the energy drive, there is no Wong's kinetic energy exhaustion at all. The mechs never broke out in fierce battles. Click, 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 click. Tony kept fiddling with the machine in his hand, trying to connect with other mechas. But it turns out, nothing. Now, the possibility of being attacked by surprise can be ruled out. Whether it is the exploration of the underground base or the mecha guarded by the martial law on the surface, they cannot be contacted. Not lost connection. Instead, access is denied, just like being blocked. B****ch. Obviously, I am the creator. A group of mechanical intelligences actually blocked me. Tony almost laughed out of anger. Dude, calm. You're mecha. Is there something wrong? Just when Tony's expression was a little dark, Thor was beside him, poking him on the shoulder. Point to the exposure video in the sky. Content of the screen. People couldn't help but widen their eyes. Mecha. Thousands of mechs soared into the sky. All kinds of guns and weapons compressed in the body are all mounted and equipped. Separate half of the mechs search for resources in the base and use the production line to produce and proliferate at the same time. The mecha troop also began to deploy tactical formations, with the underground base as the center, and continued to expand outward. The cold muzzle aimed at the explorer in SCP-2935. Rumble. All kinds of guns roared. Flight mecha units in the sky, using radar perception to find targets. Then like a fire-breathing, all kinds of bullets, shells, and even lasers and energy cannons poured out. The tide of war. It's begun. Those who entered the mirror universe received blows beyond imagination. Controlling the top technology of the galaxy, coupled with the power to travel through space at will, even super ability users cannot resist. The terrifying omnic disaster began to sweep across the mirror universe, madly slaughtering all intruders from outside. Goal, not one left. What is this? B*****************. Get the hell out of here. Where did the monster come from? Everyone be careful. There are monsters in the sky. Be careful of the artillery fire, and find a cover to hide. Damn ******************. Where did this come from? There is such a mecha lineup on Earth. Is it an alien invasion? Damn. Run. I'm chasing you. With the underground base as the original center, it radiates outward. The attack range of the mecha troops quickly covered a large field of vision. The 5 mechas form a tactical team, and after the radar detects traces of life, they immediately travel through the space to attack. A merciless attack. Coupled with the pouring of a large amount of ammunition, the explorers in SCP-2935 were beaten and complained again and again. Not just psychological oppression. There is also the suppression of iron and blood. All of them are rushing to slaughter. One time, bloody flowers bloom everywhere in SCP. 2935. The withered and yellow earth was stained with blood. The dull color has also become a bit bright red. It's all your orders? Thor turned his head. He looked at Tony in disbelief. He looked so thick-eyed. How'd he do such a bad thing? Don't look at the short time. However, the mechas of the fourth iteration are all monsters with top combat power, and they kill especially on the battlefield. There are no longer many people lying in a pool of blood. Fart, how could I give such an order? Tony didn't even think about it. He directly denied it. He won't take the blame. B. Captain America pointed to the exposure video. In the picture, there are silver-white painted mechs walking out of the space and then firing at the living body. The ruthless tongue of flames shattered all life. Everything is useless. Tony's rebuttals were full of rebuttals, all stuck in his throat, and his expression was a little stiff. He lowered his head with a dejected look on his face. With great difficulty, I squeezed out a sentence. I didn't manipulate it at all, and all the means of landing were actively blocked by the mech troops. Not only the login method, but even the access was blocked and rejected. Tony's face darkened. I kept clicking on the screen, but the text popped up by the module made people bite their back molars and want to smash the computer. Ding. Unable to access. Ding. This operation conflicts with the first element, and service is refused. The exact same words kept ringing in the system panel. The other side, the frantic killing in SCP-2935 gradually reached its climax, with scarlet blood everywhere. The first element, what is the purpose you set for these mechs? 413. Dr. Banner walked over, frowning. On the premise that Hulk is not awakened, is not controlled by another personality, and becomes the Hulk. Banner's IQ is still at the top level, and he can capture the elements of what Tony said in a few clicks. Core target, definitely protect humanity. Protect the Earth. Tony was resolute and decisive, without any hesitation in his words. But, in the exposed video above, there's a picture of mech troops slaughtering wildly. It always makes people feel unconvincing. Hole. Tony gritted his teeth and bought iron. Just when he lowered his head, with a complicated expression, and a strange light appeared in his eyes. The metallic sound of JRVS suddenly sounded. Gentlemen, receive message from Ultron, for Mecha. A message across time and space. Tony raised his head suddenly, with a surprised expression on his face. Ultron 4, messaging across time and space. Regardless of the noun, it is to the extent that people feel tense. When two nouns are needed together, the shock formed is even more noticeable. Content. What's in it? Tony's voice was a little hoarse. He had a hunch that this would be a big melon. Not only him, there were also members of the Avengers Alliance next to them, and they all rushed over when they heard the movement. Mech information? Messaging in the mirror universe? Don't they already have intelligence? What kind of mecha did you build? This is too strong. A group of people couldn't hold back their curiosity and rushed over one after another. In the eyes of everyone in the Avengers Alliance, AR slowly revealed. The message read, I don't have any answers. I don't think there are any. I'm going to keep doing this and hopefully fix it. Close it. The only way to save the world is to kill. My creator, I will follow your philosophy and protect mankind until the end of the long night, until death. The crowd of Avengers, including Nick Fury, who were confused by these words at first. Especially Tony. He doesn't remember that he taught me so much swearing. Till the end, they discovered an encrypted audio log buried in a data deluge. Badge. What surprised Tony even more? The encryption method of this log is very close to his usual style. With the assistance of JRVS, it was quickly cracked successfully. Journal from Iron Man in the Mirror Universe. It's a message from Tony himself, but he's not the Iron Man Tony of the real world, but the Iron Man from the Mirror Universe. Tony. The light and shadow flickered. In a holographic projection, a bust emerged. It looks highly similar to Tony. Like two twins, they look very similar, but Tony in the holographic projection looks more mature and has experienced more hardships. But these are just minor details. After being slightly shocked, they were quickly shocked by the information conveyed in the log. In this message, Tony described everything they encountered in the mirror universe. In their world, the existence of SCP-2935 was also discovered, and they had to venture into it in order to investigate the situation, but without the help of the terrifying. Completion Program. Although he and Banner jointly developed Ultron, an embedded mind gem in it, creating a powerful mech beyond imagination. But there's no way to remotely control it across a universe. So, they can only enter in person. When Tony and other members entered together, they came to a new dimension universe. Afterwards, they found out the same inanimate, post-extinct organisms. In that ruined world. But there is one key difference between these things. It's not the mirror dimension they just studied, but a third, completely different dimension. In his memorable last sentence, Tony in the mirror universe admits that whatever the cause of the event was, in the third-dimensional universe, a mirror-dimensional entity that Thor believes is the death god, perhaps the thing that originally caused death, has returned with him. Entering his world, history is repeated. SCP-2935 is a portal through which the death god can travel through cosmic dimensions, and our universe of this dimension will be next. Inevitably doomed to death, perhaps it can be saved. But if people who enter SCP-2935 come back through the cave again, they may bring death. The death god in the mirror universe will follow them back. So, there is an explanation for the crazy slaughter of the mech troops. Kill all life forms that enter SCP-2935 and prevent them from returning through the cave. Make the death god in the mirror universe unable to follow them away. This is the absolute death chill of SCP-2935. It is also Tony from the mirror universe who thought of the solution. I was caught off guard by such explosive information. The people around couldn't help but gasp, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Watch the exposure video. The scene of the massacre of the mecha troops seems to have a new interpretation at this moment. Scarlet blood flowed on the mech. The silvery white fuselage was painted with mottled traces dripping down the metal body. Surrounded by mechs exploding one by one, it was as gorgeous as a firework, composing a hymn together. It seems that there is an invisible oath resounding in my ears through the screen. My Creator, I will follow your philosophy and protect mankind until the end of the long night, until death. An indescribable sense of trembling emerged in my heart. Silence. Long silence, until the deadlock was finally broken by Captain America. "I think we should make things public." Captain America's hoarse voice was inexplicably choked. "It's time to announce." Nick Fury nodded. After being infected by an unknown force, those mechs can refuse Tony's landing and manipulation, which means that they have independent wisdom and are omnics with their own thoughts. In this case, they are actually willing to die generously in order to carry out Tony's order, protect human beings. The biological forms killed by death in SCP-2935 are not limited to humans, animals, and the like. Even computers, televisions, and these lifelike bodies are covered by death. Stay in the mirror universe of SCP-2935. The final outcome: only irreversible death. In this kind of ending, stick to the portal of the cave, and then risk death to clear and clean it. Protect humans? Nick Fury murmured under his breath. He, whose heart has been frozen, couldn't help being touched. Information leaked. With the deliberate connivance of Nick Fury, the contents of the SHIELD intelligence leak quickly rushed to the desks of major forces and even set off an upsurge on the internet. The world's strongest organization, SHIELD information leaked. Among the hot searches, there are 9 of them. I have to say, Braised Eggs know how to announce the news. Death God in the Mirror Universe. A message from the last cosmic dimension, Death. Ancient One's pupils constricted, with Doctor Strange giving her confidence. The speed with which she gets first-hand information is definitely the fastest. Hashtag, before our world. In the Mirror Universe, we first came into contact with SCP-2935 and entered the last cosmic dimension inside. Then there are living people coming out of it. That's why Death God followed closely, causing the entire Mirror Universe to enter death, which is the reason why countless people died unexpectedly. The horrifying reality shocks people. Even the well-informed Ancient One and Odin couldn't recover for a while. Turn out to be, this is the truth. Odin's voice was a little hoarse. The appalling reality filled his eyes with dread. Such creepy stuff. 1,000,000 times more terrifying than Ragnarok's prophecy. Mirror Universe. Is it actually just implicated by the previous dimension of the universe? And now, we also met this fate. Odin stares at SCP-2935. It is obviously just a deep cave, but in his eyes, it is no different from the most terrifying abyss. Then hell, then the dark dimension, then all kinds of evil. A bottomless abyss that is billions of times more terrifying. More than one death. More than one universe. The observer's pupil shrinks, just like the file size of the eye of a needle. This time he was completely frightened, since the destruction of the mirror dimension is caused by the death god of the previous dimension universe. So what is the reason why the universe in the last dimension fell into dead silence? It must also be the previous universe. The corners of the observer's mouth are smirking, and their eyes are abnormally dignified. It's like seeing a series of universes without beginning and end, falling into death one by one. Affected by the death god who travels through the universe dimensions, one by one falls into irreversible death. Even, there should be many universes. Didn't know what happened till the end. SCP-2935. Absolutely. Yes. Die. Die. The observer's voice was a little stagnant, as if he had spoken word by word. His expression was extremely heavy. Stare at the cave in the exposure frame. An observer who has clearly witnessed countless major events in the universe and all kinds of horrible scenes. Facing SCP-2935, I couldn't help but feel indescribable fear in my heart. A dark cave, like the open mouth of a giant beast. And its prey is the entire universe. Damn it, a dead universe? A tragedy happening in a cycle? This is too exciting. My God, I didn't expect that we are so close to death. Damn, I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death. I'll change my pants first, and we'll talk when I get back. Phew. Fortunately, we have Iron Man. The Ultron series of mechas are the strongest shields that protect mankind. We will be fine when we see that, as long as the purge is over, the danger will pass. Fart. You were the one who scolded Iron Man the worst. Your ID, Iron Man, is dead. You haven't changed it yet. Little Sunspot is showing his chicken feet. There's a lot of noise on the internet. However, the atmosphere was generally calm. After a short period of panic, he quickly relaxed. Anyway, there are armored troops inside. Those superpowers and ordinary people will definitely not be able to escape the cleaning. Can only say, sacrifice a little. Many people watch the show with a shrugging attitude. Until a bullet screen drifted past quietly. Something's wrong, buddy. There seems to be a pervert who can't be killed by mech troops. In a mirror universe, the man in the black and red tights, and with the double knife style, stood up again and again under the roar of artillery fire. Obviously, he has been beaten to death countless times, but he stood up again and again. The bloody flesh did not affect his recovery. Hey, buddy, next time, you can actually change the direction of the gun. You hit my asterisk. The cheap temperament can be felt through the battle suit. This taste because of the rush. Behind his continuous resurrection and recovery, in the vagueness, a graceful voice is slowly taking shape. Obviously, it's just a phantom, but it has an indescribable temperament, as if it is above the mirror universe. Prickly, the knife flashes. The two long knives brought a series of electric sparks on the mech. The powerful high-speed cutting cut a deep scar on the mech's body. Corresponding, the mech raised its arm, and the energy cannon that shot out from the palm also rushed towards it with a powerful wave of air. But hitting it on a black and red battle suit has little effect. Last second, he was beaten until he vomited blood. Next second, he jumped up again alive and well. Listen to me. This little damage is far from enough to kill me. Dude, you're leaking oil. Pulling and pulling the long knife, it pierced through the mech's chest directly, along the buttocks to the chest. Coupled with his cheap voice, in the entire universe, there is only one person who fits this style. Deadpool possesses a near-immortal regenerative ability. And also being licked by death, Thanos personally cursed him for not being able to die, resisting the return of death. Immortality beyond imagination. Relying on ability, known as the little b asterisk ch Deadpool, has the ability to break the fourth wall. In the infinite universe, it is also a rare special character. Rumble, cannon fire roars. The mecha troops fired in unison. As time went by, the superpowers and the advanced troops sent into the mirror universe of SCP-2935 were cleaned up, and the mechas that were scattered in search of life forms and killed gradually completed their missions and returned. A group of mechas spontaneously gathered beside Deadpool. Then, they set fire to attack him. The crisis that is about to be resolved must not be destroyed at the last moment. Overloaded attacks continue to erupt in the sky. All kinds of terrifying weapons are staged in turn, and even technologies that only exist in science fiction movies also occur from time to time. On the Earth, countless people waiting in front of the screen, they all watched an unprecedented arms feast intently. For some military enthusiasts, it is simply a supreme celebration comparable to the Huxia New Year Spring Festival. Followed by that, 18,000 Ways to Die in Deadpool. In the eye-popping metal storm, Deadpool was repeatedly beaten to death and then revived. It can be called the regeneration power of immortality. Even if he is smashed into a sieve by bullets, he can easily recover. Quite often, when it is completely torn and smashed into powder fragments, it will waste some time to recover. But in the end, it was easy to recover. Call out, light and shadow change. Press Deadpool on the space belt and teleport it again. If it weren't for the mechas, they all have their own space ability. Can't keep up with this guy. Hey, next, can you tell the dog author to stop beating him? Besides, if you want to fight, keep away from me. My handsome face can't be affected, and I still count on this to help me pick up girls. You know, if you don't have a handsome face, you'll have to pick up all the big girls in the country. Add money. Deadpool kept complaining. He curled his lips, showing a dead fish-eyed expression. That's right. He can't be killed, but he meows in pain. All he has is regeneration, not paralysis of limbs. If his limbs have no feeling and the last joy of life is gone, he might as well be dead. Deadpool had a mean look on his face. However, Mets respond to him. Only endless bombardment. Rumble. The muzzles of the guns were raised one by one. They began to store energy and fill up, and the smell of gunpowder smoke began to permeate. Countless heavy artillery roared, falling with missiles and dragging a long flame tail. It looks scary. Question mark. Dude, you're crazy. It's just killing someone. The battle is too big. Deadpool is in a bad mood. The reality is like someone forcing you to hey. Since you can't resist, you can only enjoy it. Xiao Jianjian is quite proficient in bad literature. Just when he was gritting his teeth, letting the missiles ravage him, and half closed his eyes. In a daze, it seemed to see a graceful figure. Wonderful, beauty, and very familiar. It was like when he dreamed back at midnight, the figure he had dreamed of countless times. It is also the activation of super ability, the supreme goddess he saw when he was hovering on the edge of death. But goddess this time seems a little grumpy. Xiao Jianjian scratched his head, a little uncertain. Vaguely, a graceful voice slowly formed behind Deadpool. Obviously, it's just a phantom, but it has an indescribable temperament, as if it surpasses the mirror universe, with an arrogance that cannot be ignored. When she appeared, she seemed to be the center of the universe, and all eyes couldn't help but focus on her. Who is it? Stealing my authority, stepping out of nothingness. Opening the mouth is Wang Jia. A terrifying atmosphere swept across the audience. A gray halo spread, and the surface of the silver-white mecha was instantly stained with rust, as if it had been eroded by death and completely lost its light. Not only the appearance, but even the structure and parts inside are constantly decaying. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, they fell down continuously. Death God. Observers' pupils constrict. One of the 5 creation gods of the universe. He definitely knows. Except for Uncle Tun's special situation where the force is too low, the low is too low, and it is almost becoming a combat power measurement unit. Several others. They are all terrifying existences one by one. Above the multi-universe, the figure spreads across countless dimensions. Not so much a strong one. It's more like a concept, even some kind of unchangeable rule in the universe. And the god of death. He is the abstract deity born from the infinite existence of the creator multi-universe. The source, creator, and manipulator of all life souls in the universe. It represents, in all universes, the visualization of the specific form of the end of all life. In all the myths, the king of hell, the lord of hell, the creator and master of various death god concepts, represents the ultimate concrete image of the entire universe. Z. It's a concept-level horror boss. He actually appeared. The face of the observer changed suddenly. This is not the kind of force that devours the ground. It is one of the real 5 creation gods. SCP-2935. What the hell are those abnormalities? The observer recalled the roar of the god of death just now, and suddenly panicked. It was able to attract this big guy. The upper limit of the storage seems to be far more terrifying than he imagined. In the fleet group that is rapidly leaping towards the Earth. Die, goddess! Thanos' eyes lit up. In an instant, he changed from the overlord of the universe to the appearance of licking a dog. Fine. In the largest fleet, there's no one else but him, and the image of the overlord of the universe can still be kept. It actually appeared. Thanos stared at the screen, his eyes never blinking. His eyes stared at the picture in a dazed way, and his eyes greedily stayed on the figure of death. The eyeballs were almost glued to it. Equal death. The end of all things. Thanos whispered. His heart, that was about to move, was almost uncontrollable. Notify the entire fleet. abandon the defensive cover, and move forward at full speed. All energy should be given priority to the power system of the spacecraft. An impatient roar rang out. Whoosh! The speed of the spaceship was already on the verge of limit. Under the weight of Thanos, it speeded up again. The curvature engine is almost rubbing sparks. Earth, Kamartaj, Holy Land, Death God. Ancient One had a serious expression on his face. Fortunately, she listened to and accompanied the eternal great God, and having had contact with the 5 great gods, she knew their horror well. But the state of the Death God seems a bit wrong. It's not like the all-inclusive concept of eternity that she saw when she was walking in the astral world. More like, after splitting a certain force, projecting it in the real dimension, it appears after downgrading. A certain aspect of the great god of death, a projection in the universe. Ancient One murmured in a low voice. Inadvertently, most of the situation has been guessed. But, even so, Ancient One is still not underestimated. Or, they have no right to underestimate them. In any case, he is also the god of death, one of the 5 creation gods, and the projection of the supreme existence beyond the universe. The real combat power is absolutely beyond imagination. Without external intervention, how can the power within the rules fight against the existence outside the rules, even the existence of the rules? Odin stared slightly. That's how things are going. He had already given up struggling, and the Nordic god king sat on the ground, like an old man in his twilight years, quietly waiting for the ending to come. Resist? It's just meaningless stuff. Mommy F **K. Is there no one who can get rid of her? At least it's good to stop it. Nick Fury's face was as gloomy as water, and his eyes were cloudy. It is different from the awe and fear of the cosmic powerhouses and those top bosses. Braised eggs are very practical. Deadpool, that is to say, Xiao Jian, who has never been beaten to death, suddenly appeared behind him, an existence that looked extremely terrifying, and smashed a group of mechs when he appeared on the stage, obviously not a kind person. Asking for flowers. The terrifying gray mist spread, constantly destroying the mechs on the field. This is the passive aura of his appearance. Deadpool was already unbeatable. After the Death God appeared, it became more difficult to solve. But once Deadpool or the newly emerged beings get out of SCP-2935, Nick Fury's pupils shrank. His back was sweating coldly, and the price of terror was beyond his imagination. A universe will face death, especially with several lessons learned from the past. Braised egg definitely will not naively think that the universe he lives in will be an accident. Damn, absolutely don't let him out. Nick Fury gritted his teeth, his expression gloomy. #, he's on the outside. I can only watch the situation develop helplessly, unable to deal with it at all. The newly appeared goddess, really. It's too scary. The mecha is no match at all. You don't even need to make a move. The passive spread of power is enough to destroy all the mechs. Once the mecha is gone, after losing the power to stop, there's no one to stop Deadpool from going out. By then, what if in the mirror universe, the invisible Death God appeared after him again? ****. Nick Fury slapped the table angrily. The thick 1,000-plywood board has been pressed down by him. Watch the screen progress. It was like waiting for the death sentence to come. Director, something is wrong. There seems to be something wrong. The voice of Phil Coulson broke the solemn atmosphere in the meeting room. Nick Fury, bowing his head angrily. Look in the direction Phil Coulson is pointing. 00. Soon, he found a scene that he will never forget. Mirror universe. Who stole my authority? Dressed in a black robe like a black veil, she wrapped her body, and inside was a tattooed skeleton that resembled a skull. When the goddess of death came this time, she used this posture. An angry growl sounded. A gray aura emanated from her body. Soon, countless mechas will decay from the outside to the inside. Or, in other words, the body will die, just as countless people thought. The situation is about to settle down like this. After all, how can some mechanical bodies fight against the gods of creation? then it is just a conceptual projection. However, the most indispensable thing in the world is always accidents. Invisible wave spread. A bright light suddenly sprouted from the fallen mechs one by one. The dim light is like fireflies in the night sky, and a little bit of glimmer is inconspicuous. But after gathering millions of rays of light one by one, they gradually became impossible to ignore. That's right, millions. The mecha troop manufactured by Tony is indeed only a few thousand mechas. This has already squeezed Stark Industry dry. It is the limit of what he can do, but the number of thousands is obviously not mechas. Troop limit. Occupied the Foundation's underground base. The resources inside are being swallowed, and the production line is constantly expanding outwards. There are also countless resources, which are constantly being transported and loaded inside. More than half of the mechas are on the production line, constantly producing outward. One can imagine how terrifying the sum must be. Let go of the restrictions completely, and the speed of the ever-proliferating mechs has skyrocketed. The speed of the explosive soldiers is not inferior to that of the interstellar Zerg, one after another rushing towards death. Under normal circumstances, it's just moths to the flame, meaningless things. Didn't you see that God of Death didn't even raise his head, and has been studying the anomalies of the universe to find out who is stealing her authority? DJI. These mechs are not normal. Tony is in the mech unit, but he stuffed a machine with a completion program infection. Completion. 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 The vast white light floating out of the mecha seemed to be singing the same content. Gather water into a river. Countless voices echoed and resounded endlessly around, like some kind of mysterious hymn. The death god was finally alarmed by the abnormality. Looking up from the research, I cast my gaze over, wanting to see what these ants are doing. However, when she focused her eyes, what I saw was a vast brilliance. In the indescribable brilliance of divinity, it seems to be witnessing a multi-dimensional world caged by machines. Click, click. Every time the gear turns is seamless, and it is promoting the operation of the multi-dimensional world, the ultimate beyond machines. On the abyss, order and law are woven. Forge every law of physics with your own hands, so that everything can run in an orderly manner. He is Lord of clockwork and gears. It is also the source of endless wisdom and knowledge. What? The god of death frowned. The figure under the black cloak had a dignified expression, as the original creation god beyond the multi-universe. Even if it's just a power projection, there shouldn't be anything in this world that she can't see through. But in front of you, these light spots floating out from the mecha. But it made her feel mysterious. It's obviously just a group of ants, like light, but when a number continues to gather, it becomes extremely dazzling. It's like tiny gears that together complement and form some kind of huge machine. When the quantity exceeds a certain level, actually ushered in the sublimation of nature. From her disdain for ants to an existence that cannot be ignored. Impossible. The thought of fear just arose and was thrown out of my mind by the death god. She is a god of creation, and there are only a handful of people who can stand shoulder to shoulder with her. A guy who has never heard of it can actually be comparable to her in essence, and even make her pay attention and fear. Joke. The death god's expression turned cold. On the skull-like face, there was the arrogance of the original gods. Mechanical? It's just a ridiculous human trick. The death god's eyes were slightly cold, with a bit of anger on his face. I don't know if it's because I'm ashamed and resentful of my previous fears. Still angry that an unknown god dared to act arrogantly in front of her. Farce. should be silent in the abyss forever. The god of death's expression turned cold. She descended from nothingness and projected into this weird universe, not to play with a bunch of mechanical toys, but to find Buhei, who stole her authority. The entire cosmic dimension died without warning, but it did not turn into her power. Even if it wasn't triggered by the perception on Deadpool, she wouldn't even know what happened to 680. This is an intolerable thief to the power of death she wields. Mechanical? God, never heard of it. The god of death's eyes turned cold, and he was completely moved with killing intent. I plan to get rid of this annoying ant as soon as possible, and then concentrate on searching to find out the invisible thief. Die. The god of death tapped with his fingertips. As the projection of the power of the creation god, her attack has no bells and whistles. It's just a simple concept. It looks unpretentious, even a little too simple. Point out, the concept of endless death surges forward like a tide, with the power of death that would bring everything in the world, even the universe originally, to an end. Irresistible, irreversible. Conceptually, it has surpassed what energy can describe. The overlords of the universe, the top powerhouses, and the immortals under this kind of power will usher in rapid decline, and their lifespan will slip into the abyss when they enter their twilight years and cannot resist. As long as they are within the circle, no matter how powerful the individual is, they cannot break free from the shackles of the rules. It's just like a person in a bottle can never grow beyond the bottle originally. Dest. Countless people in the exposed video couldn't help but gasp. I didn't expect the god of death to be so ruthless. Starting is a big move. Leave no stone unturned. Watching helplessly, the last ray of hope in the universe is about to go out under the shroud of death. Many people, I couldn't help but close my eyes, and many more, sitting on the ground in despair. However, just when the pessimistic atmosphere continued to spread on the earth like a virus, in despair, there seems to be a ray of light. The brilliance of the mecha gathered together. The most central mecha began to be integrated by countless gears. Swish, swish, swish. Countless mechanical structures extended from behind him, turning into mechanical wings. Wings filled with metal texture reflect strange brilliance in the sunlight, and there's a divinity flowing in the center, pouring into it, covering the sky and blocking the sun. Even the sun is blocked. The true face of the completion program, finally revealed. Now, Tet. No, it should be called him. The messy metal is smelted into a handle with huge amounts of metal scepter, which is held in his hand, and the tip is an object similar to a gear machine, which is inlaid at the front end, symbolizing the concept. Ascension, broken god, return from the broken, the god of clockwork and gears, symbolizing the supreme divinity of order and reason. Facing the concept shock of the death god, he just lifted the scepter slightly and then pointed forward. Click! The gears at the top of the scepter turned slowly. It seems to be touching the multiverse. The invisible wave blooms. The concept of death that sweeps over everything and affects the universe. And the sound of gears turning actually stopped. It seemed to be clamped by some invisible, huge machinery, and the pause was forcibly pressed. This, impossible. The god of death screamed in shock. She couldn't believe at all that a shabby god she had never heard of could block her conceptual attack. The key is, other side, clearly just returned from a broken one. Recasting the godhead, divinity, and power are far from back to their peak. Just this level. How could he easily block her attack? This is impossible. The skull face under the black cloak of the death god was full of disbelief. Same. There are not a few people in the universe who are as shocked as her. Especially the top powerhouse who knew the horror of the death god, the overlord of the universe. All stared wide-eyed. What exactly is he? The observer's pupils trembled, and his face was filled with horror. Unimaginable. In the universe, there actually exists who can compete with the death god. This exists. Seems to be just aggregated from a bunch of mechs. The observer suddenly feels that reality is absurd. When will a group of mechanical creations be able to touch porcelain with the five gods? Science? Is it really that strong? The observer stares blankly at the screen, falling into deep self-doubt. SHIELD. What the hell? Thor, Tony, you made these? Are you exaggerating too much? Meeting room. Everyone gasped, involuntarily turning his head to look at Tony next to him. Their gazes turned into stares. Too strong. Can actually create a mecha that can have an A***L relationship with the death god? It's outrageous. In a short time, just now, they already knew the concept of the great death god from Ancient One through Doctor Strange. It is precisely because I know that I feel shocked. Humanity. It actually competes with the Lord of Death God in concept. And it is also the kind of multi-universe level. And looks like it still has the upper hand. It's too awesome. Please, don't look at me like that. It's none of my business. The corner of Tony's mouth twitched. He didn't recite it. Joke. He is just a weak, pitiful, and helpless scientist. How can he have such power against the sky? At most, he designed a set of mecha programs. These are messy. Mecha. Divinity. And that mechanical god, who looks impressive. Tony doesn't even have a good impression. He didn't even draw the relevant sketches. Same with Doctor Strange in them. It was also the first time for him to see the appearance of the mechanical god. At most, those complimentary hymns sounded familiar to Tony, as if he had heard them vaguely in his sleep often. Could it be, in the mirror dimension, the future you did it? Doctor Strange frowned. Another possibility was proposed. Maybe it is. Dr. Banner nodded, representing the thoughts of many people. Just when everyone in the Avengers Alliance was discussing the possibility. On the exposure screen, finally something new has appeared. The pure color is pitch black, and the projection like paper cutting appears in the picture. Countless gear machines surround him. Exudes a radiance that cannot be desecrated. Right next to it, the metal crisscrossed, as if there was a terrifying existence sealed inside. Just watching from a distance through the screen will make people feel that the body is distorted, as if instinctively evolving toward the sun. Surrounded by ink smudges, forming lines of text. The broken god. Personality. Supreme divinity. The broken gods meet. The supreme divinity worshipped. The gods who control machinery and electronics. Weave order and law on the abyss. Forge every physical law. And make everything run. Teaching human logic and rationality is the source of endless wisdom and knowledge. Close to omniscience and omnipresence, spread across countless dimensions. At the cost of breaking itself, it sealed Debosi, who is also the supreme divinity, under the silver net. The broken god. Ancient One's pupils constricted. Her expression suddenly changed, not only because of the supreme divinity in the content. It is a silhouette that flashes behind the picture. The scarlet light and shadow and the countless metal crisscross grids made Gu feel his heart being held tightly by Invisible's big hand. Aldabas, another supreme divinity? The voice of Ancient One is extremely hoarse, like the friction sound of old metal. It was as if an invisible mountain suddenly came down. Indescribable pressure. It made her feel inexplicably heavy and a little out of breath. Ancient One. Odin turned his head, with a bit of worry in his eyes. The two of them can be said to be suffering brothers and sisters, living in the 9 realms together, and they are natural allies. For the state of Ancient One, Odin definitely worried. No, it's okay. Ancient One covered his right eye with his hand. His expression was a bit ferocious, and he was sweating continuously. It's like suffering terrible pain. You look like this, it doesn't look like you're not heavy. Odin sighed inwardly. But Ancient One obviously didn't want him to intervene, and Odin would not intervene forcefully. His eyes paused slightly. Keep doubts in your heart. Both of them ignored the accident very tacitly. Act like nothing happened. The broken god? That mechanical god, is it so terrifying? The observer's face changed slightly. He originally thought that the protagonist of this containment should be the terrifying SCP-2935. Did not expect. Short time, accidents happen one after another. First, the god of death, the god of creation, appeared on the stage. And then again, the gathering of divinity born in the machine. The key is, this god of brokenness, which has never been heard before, is actually fighting head-to-head with the god of death. Don't say anything. The god of death is just a projection, not full power at all. The broken god, it's also just returned from being broken, and it's 108,000 miles away from heyday. The divine brilliance, composed of some mechas, can compete with the death god, and obscurely has the upper hand. It is simply unimaginable how terrifying he must be in his prime, and such a terrifying mechanical supreme god. Actually, at the cost of breaking himself, he sealed another one, the supreme divinity, Audiobook in the silver net. Look at the posture. There is never more than one supreme divinity. The broken god is not the strongest in this class at all. At least Audiobook is slightly stronger than him. Supreme divinity? What the hell is this existence? The observer's deep voice was indescribably heavy. Among the numerous abnormalities in SCP, the content leaked from the tip of the iceberg is really too terrifying. Supreme divinity. The target is very likely to be the creation god, or even a higher existence. Supreme divinity? Collector pouted, dismissing the picture on the screen. He has countless kinds of strange collections under his hands, but the only one who has never heard of the broken god. What a gear god. The god of rules. All children's tricks. Maybe it's a civilization on the surface, a civilization that can't even go out of the galaxy. It seems that this wonderful collection is going to be missed. Collector shook his head regretfully. In his opinion, with the action of the death god, everything has been settled. The death god, an invisible, will definitely be easily found out by the death god, and then easily resolved. As for the broken god, what kind of little Kayla is that? In front of the creation gods, isn't she easily destroyed? For point 7, don't make trouble. When will a false god believed by the natives on the surface be able to compete with the creation god? Mech machinery or something. Only galactic civilizations like to use those toys. Laugh. Too naive. Collector sneered. Condescending attitude. It is the usual arrogance of the ancients. However, next moment, the scene in the picture made him fall off the stage directly. A picture beyond imagination. He fell off his seat in shock. But Collector ignored the pain and embarrassment and stared straight ahead. His face was full of disbelief. This is impossible. It's obviously just some broken copper and rotten iron. Excited voices, with vibrato, kept echoing in the hall. Mirror universe. It's just a fake god. There was a cold light on the stern face of the death god. On attack, was it actually blocked by the ants in her eyes? For her arrogant personality, this is simply a great shame. Unforgivable. The god of death became completely serious. She wants to use absolute death to wash away the insult she just Received. A mere false god. He dares to face my brilliance. The power of endless death poured out. All are the purest concept of death. Even if it is just a projection, after the power explodes completely, it is enough to pull a universe to sink and go to ruins. The power that can bring a universe to an end is all pressing towards the god of brokenness. And his response? He just raised the scepter in his hand again. Crack! The tip gear turns. The broken god finally raised his weapon.